The chamber of the starship Zenith was unlike anything humans had ever imagined. Soft light floated in the air, illuminating walls covered with symbols that shifted subtly as one watched, like patterns in a living tapestry. The air was faintly scented with something the human nose could not name, a mixture of warmth and minerals, and it seemed to hum with quiet energy. The alien delegation sat scattered around a circular platform at the center, each figure strange and different. Some were tall and spindly, their limbs stretching in angles that made the human eye dizzy. Others were round and squat, with skin that shimmered like liquid glass. But all of them shared the same nervous tension in the way they moved, the way they whispered to one another, the way they occasionally glanced toward the massive doors that led into the chamber. For the aliens, this meeting was a gamble. They had studied humans from a distance for decades, recording behavior, communication patterns, and their capabilities. Humans, they had concluded, were chaotic, primitive, and unpredictable. They had no great fleets, no advanced weaponry that could rival the alien civilizations that had thrived for centuries. And yet, somehow, humans had begun to rise, to explore, to carve their name into the galaxy. The aliens had gathered in the Zenith today to decide if humanity should be controlled, guided, or observed from afar. None of them expected a human to enter the chamber themselves. When the doors hissed open, it was as if the atmosphere shifted. The air seemed to thicken, and a faint chill rippled through the room. The aliens froze mid-motion. All whispers ceased. Time itself felt like it slowed, or perhaps it was perception. Something within the human presence disrupted their sense of order. Captain Elena Voss of the human starship Odyssey stepped into the room. She was nothing extraordinary in height or appearance. She wore a standard-issue human uniform, neat but unassuming. And yet, the chamber reacted to her. She moved with a quiet confidence, every step measured, every gesture controlled yet relaxed, and it was impossible not to feel that something about her presence demanded attention. She paused in the center of the room and looked around. The aliens were silent, staring, unsure how to react. Elena did not bow, she did not lower her gaze. She merely observed, her dark eyes scanning the faces of the delegation with calm intelligence. It was a look that conveyed both curiosity and understanding, a way of making them feel seen without threat. And perhaps that was what unsettled them most. The human did not seek to dominate, yet the room felt smaller, constrained, as if it were trying to hold itself together against a force it did not understand. "I come with a proposal," Elena said, her voice even, clear, and slightly musical in a way that no translator could distort. "Not for war, not for conquest, but for cooperation." The aliens shifted uneasily, exchanging glances. Some were whispering now, voices low and rapid in their native tongue. Even the hum of the chamber seemed to react to her words. Elena noticed nothing outwardly. She had trained for encounters like this, though never with a species so unfamiliar, so unaccustomed to humans. She understood instinctively that the first impression mattered more than any argument, more than any documentation she had brought along. Presence was power, and she had presence in abundance. The largest of the aliens, a figure with elongated arms and eyes like molten metal, spoke first. Its voice resonated deep within the chamber, vibrating the walls. "Why should we believe you? Your species is known for chaos, for mistakes, for unpredictability. You have no fleets capable of defense. Why should we not simply ignore your proposal?" Elena tilted her head slightly, considering. She could feel the underlying challenge, the test hidden in words. The aliens had underestimated humans, assuming weakness. She smiled faintly, almost imperceptibly, but it was enough to unsettle them. "Because," she replied, Sometimes unpredictability is not weakness. Sometimes it is the very thing that allows you to see solutions you cannot imagine. For a moment, the room was still. The aliens were unsure whether to be insulted, intrigued, or alarmed. Elena walked slowly along the circular platform, her steps echoing softly. She did not raise her voice, did not gesture wildly, yet the chamber seemed to bend around her. She stopped before the spindly alien with 3 segmented eyes. "I do not come to command. I come to collaborate. But collaboration requires respect, and respect is earned." Whispers broke out among the aliens again, this time more hurried. They were not accustomed to being addressed this way, and the concept that humans could demand respect without weapons, without rank, without coercion, was alien to them in every sense of the word. The human captain continued, "I understand your hesitation. I would hesitate too if I were in your place, but I propose a test, not of strength, but of intellect and creativity. Let us see what humans can do when given the tools, the environment, and the challenge. Let us see if we are worthy of collaboration." The alien with molten eyes tilted its head, a gesture that seemed to signify both curiosity and skepticism. "A test?" it asked. "You propose a contest of knowledge?" Elena nodded. "A test, but not to prove superiority, to prove potential, to show that humanity is capable of more than your data predicts." The chamber went silent. The concept of human potential was something no alien had truly calculated. They could measure strength, technological advancement, even strategies of survival. But potential, true, creative potential, was not easily quantified. Humans, they had discovered, often defied patterns, made choices that were illogical by alien reasoning, yet astonishingly effective. It was dangerous to underestimate, and yet most had not dared to face one directly. The largest alien rose slowly, its movements deliberate. "Very well, human. We accept your test. Show us what your species can do. But know this: we do not value failure kindly. Your errors will be noted." Elena bowed slightly, a gesture of acknowledgement and not of submission. "Understood. I accept." Immediately, the chamber transformed. Panels rose from the floor, casting holographic projections of intricate patterns, shifting mazes, and complex algorithms into the air. The aliens watched, evaluating her reactions carefully. She approached the first simulation, a 3-dimensional lattice of interlocking geometric shapes, constantly rearranging according to rules too complex for instinct alone. Many humans would have paused, hesitated, or guessed. Elena observed first, letting the patterns settle into familiar cycles, noticing the subtle rhythms. Then she began to move, her fingers tracing paths in the air, her mind thinking in ways that were at once logical and imaginative. Hours seemed to pass in mere minutes. The aliens, who had seen generations of their best thinkers fail to solve these projections, could not hide their astonishment. Elena approached the simulations not as problems to conquer, but as puzzles to understand. Where machines predicted, she anticipated. Where algorithms failed, she improvised. Her solutions were elegant, yet unexpected, like a dance of thought rather than a battle of intellect. One of the spindly aliens muttered to its neighbor in a low, trembling voice, "They see beyond what our minds are built to see. They think in a manner we cannot." By the time Elena reached the final simulation, a labyrinth of energy and light that twisted impossibly in 4 dimensions, even the most confident alien looked apprehensive. The human paused, observing the patterns not as obstacles, but as a system with rules, logic, and flaws. With a single motion, she applied a sequence of manipulations that bypassed the maze entirely, revealing the solution in a way that no algorithm could have predicted. The chamber was silent again. The air seemed to hold its breath. Elena looked around, meeting the gaze of every alien present. She did not gloat, she did not smile triumphantly. She merely said, "It is not victory that matters, it is understanding. That is why humans survive. That is why humans grow." For the first time, the aliens truly saw her as an equal. Fear had melted into wonder. Doubt had shifted to curiosity. And in that moment, the room, which had felt frozen and oppressive when she first arrived, seemed to hum with possibility instead of tension. The council leader, the one with molten eyes, finally spoke again, but this time the words were not of challenge. They were words of respect. "You have shown us an unexpected path. Perhaps our initial assessment was incomplete. We underestimated the humans." Elena inclined her head, acknowledging the comment without pride. Underestimation is natural, but collaboration thrives where we recognize potential. Let us work together and discover what we can achieve. The aliens remained silent for a moment, processing her words. Some turned to their devices, recording every movement, every strategy she had applied, and every decision she had made. Others simply watched her, trying to understand the human mind that had defied all their expectations. For Elena, it was not enough to impress them. She wanted trust, genuine cooperation. And she understood that trust was fragile, often more fragile than fear. If she could prove that humans could work alongside aliens, not as subordinates, but as equals, then the future could be shaped by creativity and collaboration, rather than conflict. As the chamber slowly returned to its normal state, the floating lights resuming their usual patterns and the air settling into its usual hum, Elena felt a quiet satisfaction. She had faced doubt, uncertainty, and even fear, and she had not just survived, she had inspired respect. And in the galaxy, respect was far more valuable than any weapon. When she finally left the chamber that day, the aliens were still speaking in low, hurried tones. Some argued, some questioned, some speculated. But all had been touched by the presence of a human who could think beyond patterns, beyond limits, beyond expectation. For the first time, they understood that humans were not to be ignored, controlled, or merely observed. Humans could change the galaxy, and perhaps the universe itself, simply by being themselves. And somewhere deep within the alien delegation, a quiet, unspoken truth settled in. The human had not just entered their room. The human had shifted it, forever. The council chamber had returned to its quiet, usual hum, but the echoes of Elena Voss's presence lingered like a warm pulse through the air. The alien delegation, despite their initial skepticism, could not ignore what had just occurred. A human had entered their midst, and not only survived their scrutiny, but had surpassed it. The patterns she had solved, the logic she had bent in ways they could not anticipate. It was unprecedented. Even the elder with molten eyes, who carried the weight of centuries of experience, found himself reevaluating everything he thought he knew about humans. Elena herself had retreated to a small observation area aboard the Zenith, a place where the ambient light shifted to soothe her mind. She did not know what the aliens would do next, but she sensed that this was only the beginning. Humans thrived in unpredictability, and now she had the opportunity to demonstrate that adaptability could be a bridge between species rather than a wedge. Meanwhile, in the council chamber, discussion erupted. The aliens debated, some loudly, some in muted tones, about what to do next. "It is impossible," muttered one of the spindly ones, its limbs curling in agitation. "The human bypassed the maze. It should not be able to see solutions like that." Another shook its round, reflective head. "Do not underestimate pattern recognition. Do not underestimate analysis. But this is not analysis alone. It is creativity. It is instinct combined with logic. I have never witnessed it before." The elder, with molten eyes who had remained silent for some time, finally spoke. "We face a choice. We may attempt to test the human further, push our simulations harder, or we may begin to consider collaboration. The human has shown potential we cannot ignore. To reject this opportunity may be to deny advancement." The debate continued long into what would have been night for human circadian rhythms. But for the aliens, time was fluid, and they measured it differently. They decided, at last, to construct a second challenge, not of raw intellect, but of creative problem-solving, a test that would combine logic, innovation, and adaptability. If humans could succeed, it would prove beyond doubt that they were worthy partners, not just subjects of curiosity. The next day, Elena was summoned back to the council chamber. This time, she noticed the air was warmer, the lights softer, yet the tension in the room remained. The aliens had prepared a new series of holographic simulations, more intricate and dynamic than the last. One projected an endless network of energy pathways, twisting and spiraling in dimensions humans had never formally explored. Another displayed a series of ecological simulations, planets with intricate interdependent life forms, requiring solutions that balanced survival, growth, and harmony. The elder with molten eyes observed from the side, his eyes reflecting a mixture of anticipation and something that resembled cautious hope. "We shall see if your species can rise again, human," he said. "Show us what we have not yet imagined." Elena stepped forward, her gaze sweeping over the holograms. She studied the energy pathways first, letting her mind adapt to the twisting, turning dimensions. Where the machines sought linear solutions, she thought laterally, where algorithms became stuck in repetition, she introduced a new perspective, imagining the network not as a puzzle to conquer, but as a system to harmonize with. Slowly, her fingers traced the air, and the pathways began to respond. They shifted, bent, and finally aligned into a coherent pattern that allowed energy to flow seamlessly across all dimensions. The aliens watched, astonished. "It is not simply problem-solving," whispered one of the observers. "It is intuition guiding logic." Next came the ecological simulations. Planets of astonishing diversity filled the chamber, ecosystems teeming with life and interdependence. A single misstep could collapse entire biomes. Where most beings would manipulate the systems with rigid control, Elena observed, listened, and responded. She made subtle adjustments that encouraged balance rather than dominance. Plant growth was guided to support animal life. Water systems were carefully redistributed, and energy cycles were optimized. The ecosystems flourished under her touch, not because she controlled them, but because she understood their rhythms. Hours passed. The aliens, accustomed to precision and calculation, were exhausted simply from watching her work. They had always valued control, planning, and predictability. Humans, it seemed, did not require rigid order to succeed. They thrived in understanding relationships, in seeing the invisible threads that connected parts of a system. Finally, Elena faced the last simulation, a projection of a star system on the verge of collapse. A planet's orbit was destabilizing, threatening to collide with its neighboring world. Resources were limited, populations were at risk, and solutions required both foresight and creativity. She considered the data carefully, weighing the physics, the energy flows, and the potential outcomes. Then she acted. Instead of brute force corrections, she devised a method to harmonize the orbital dynamics subtly, redistributing energy through carefully timed gravitational adjustments. The planets stabilized without losing any life, their cycles continuing in perfect balance. The chamber fell silent. The aliens had expected brilliance, perhaps even success, but not this level of nuanced understanding. One of the spindly aliens leaned closer to its neighbor, voice trembling. They think in ways we cannot. They see what is hidden, what is unmeasured. The elder with molten eyes stepped forward. "Enough," he said, his tone calm but commanding. "We have seen what we need to see. Human, you have demonstrated not only intelligence but insight, adaptability, and understanding. You have earned not just our attention but our respect." Elena nodded, her posture steady but humble. "Thank you. My species has much to learn and much to teach. Collaboration is not about superiority. It is about partnership. Together, we can accomplish what neither of us could alone." The aliens looked at each other, then back at her. For centuries, they had measured power in terms of control, conquest, and precision. Here was a species that measured power differently in creativity, understanding, and the ability to adapt. They realized that in human unpredictability lay a strength they had never considered. In the following weeks, Elena worked alongside the alien scientists. They were cautious at first, their methods rigid, their protocols unyielding. She challenged them gently, asking questions, proposing alternatives, suggesting perspectives they had not considered. Slowly, their resistance softened. They began to see the value in improvisation, in seeing beyond calculated outcomes. And in turn, Elena learned from their precision, their meticulous attention to detail, and their incredible technological capabilities. One afternoon, as she reviewed a simulation of a newly discovered planetary system, an alien approached her. Its form shimmered slightly in the light, and it spoke in halting common, the interstellar language humans used for communication. "Human, you do not fear failure. You accept uncertainty and still act. How can you be so confident?" Elena smiled. "Confidence comes from understanding yourself, not from knowing the outcome. Failure is not the end. It is part of the process. Humans have survived for millions of years because we adapt, we learn, and we continue. Fear is natural, but it does not control us." The alien considered her words in silence, its eyes reflecting a faint glow. "Perhaps. We have much to learn from you." As days turned into weeks, the collaborative work progressed. New algorithms were developed that combined human creativity with alien precision. Planetary systems were mapped with unprecedented clarity. Ecosystems were simulated in ways that allowed for sustainable colonization. Every project highlighted a simple truth. Humans were not limited by rules in the same way aliens were. They found solutions that were elegant and unexpected, bridging gaps that technology alone could not close. The aliens began to see Elena not as an outsider, not as a curiosity, but as a partner. In meetings, her opinions were sought. In experiments, her approach was tested and valued. The room that had once frozen when a human entered now thrummed with activity, filled with anticipation and possibility. The presence of humanity had changed the dynamic entirely, reminding the aliens that intelligence was not measured solely by calculation or order, but by creativity, resilience, and insight. One evening, as the chamber lights dimmed to mimic the soft twilight of an Earth evening, Elena stood quietly and observed her alien colleagues. She could sense their thoughts, their curiosity, and their growing respect. The journey had not been easy, but progress had been made. Humans had proven themselves, not through aggression, dominance, or force, but through understanding, ingenuity, and the courage to act in the face of uncertainty. The elder with molten eyes approached her. "Human, you have exceeded all expectations. Perhaps our initial assumptions were flawed. Perhaps your species will shape the future in ways we cannot yet imagine." Elena nodded, feeling a quiet satisfaction. "We all have the potential to shape the future. Together, our species can achieve more than either of us could alone." For the first time, the council room felt alive with possibility. Collaboration was no longer a distant concept. It was real, tangible, and inspiring. The room no longer froze when a human appeared. Instead, it buzzed with energy, curiosity, and a shared purpose. Elena had shown that humanity's strength lay not in dominance, but in creativity, understanding, and adaptability. And somewhere deep within the delegation, a new thought took root, a recognition that humans, unpredictable and audacious, were not to be feared, but embraced. They were partners, capable of shaping the galaxy in ways no one had anticipated, simply by thinking differently, acting boldly, and refusing to be limited by convention. The weeks following the simulations had transformed the council chamber into a hive of activity. What had once been a place of tense debate and subtle competition now buzzed with shared purpose. Elena Voss moved among the alien scientists, her presence calm but energizing. She had earned their respect not through force or authority, but by showing ingenuity, adaptability, and patience. The aliens, in turn, had begun to see her as an equal, a collaborator capable of thinking beyond their own systems, beyond the rigid protocols they had always trusted. Elena's next task was to assist the delegation in creating a new star mapping network. The aliens had technology far beyond human imagination, capable of detecting gravitational fluctuations, energy anomalies, and patterns of cosmic evolution with precision. But there was a problem. The data was so vast, so complex, that the aliens could not synthesize it efficiently. Systems slowed, calculations repeated endlessly, and even the most advanced algorithms produced errors. "Humans," said the spindly alien who had first voiced doubt during her arrival, "your species is unpredictable. Perhaps your perspective can solve what our calculations cannot." Elena smiled, leaning over the floating holographic interface. She had been studying the network for hours, noticing connections the aliens had ignored. "You're trying to predict the stars," she said, "but you're not listening to them." "Not really. You measure movement, energy, and light, but you don't consider patterns in how systems evolve, how they influence each other over time." The alien tilted its segmented head, curious. "Explain. How does your species interpret this differently?" "We look for relationships, not just calculations," Elena replied. "Patterns between points, tendencies that aren't obvious in numbers alone. If we can map not just the stars, but the flow of influence between systems, we might predict movement more efficiently than algorithms alone." The delegation watched in silence as she demonstrated her approach. Using intuitive connections, subtle insights, and lateral thinking, she began to restructure the network. Instead of overwhelming the system with raw data, she filtered it through a method that combined human intuition with alien precision. Slowly, the network began to organize itself, forming patterns that even the aliens had not anticipated. Stars aligned, energy flows became visible, and entire regions of space were mapped with astonishing clarity. One of the elder aliens, the one whose skin shimmered like liquid glass, leaned closer. "This is remarkable. Our calculations could not reach this clarity, yet your method achieves it naturally." Elena nodded. "It's not natural. It's observation, pattern recognition, and the willingness to trust insight. Sometimes logic alone is not enough." Over the next several days, the collaboration deepened. Aliens and humans worked side by side, sharing techniques, offering suggestions, and learning from one another. Where alien systems favored precision and rigidity, humans favored flexibility and creativity. Where humans acted on intuition, aliens applied rigorous testing. The result was synergy, a new way of thinking that neither species could achieve alone. At times, frustration flared. The aliens struggled to understand Elena's seemingly impulsive ideas, while she grew impatient with their insistence on strict adherence to protocol. But each challenge became an opportunity for mutual growth. Elena demonstrated patience, explaining concepts in ways the aliens could follow without compromising the originality of her approach. The aliens began to experiment with less rigid methods, learning that flexibility could lead to solutions previously deemed impossible. One afternoon, as the group worked on mapping a dense cluster of newly discovered systems, an alien scientist spoke up. "Captain Elena, your approach is curious. You predict movements by intuition as much as by calculation. How can you trust this method?" Elena leaned back, considering her answer carefully. "Trust comes from testing and observation," she said. "You see, it's not blind faith. I look at the data, I analyze it, I test different possibilities, and then I apply what seems most likely to work. It's like listening to a system, understanding its tendencies, and guiding it rather than forcing it." The alien paused, its glowing eyes reflecting surprise. "Listening. Guiding. We have never thought of our technology in this way." Elena smiled. "Sometimes the universe isn't just a puzzle to solve, it's a story to understand." By the end of the week, the network had evolved into something extraordinary. It not only mapped known star systems with unparalleled accuracy, but also predicted the evolution of entire regions of space over time. The aliens were astonished. What had once seemed an insurmountable problem had been solved not through brute computation, but through collaboration and creative thinking. In recognition of her achievements, the delegation held a formal meeting. Elena entered the chamber, which was now brighter, filled with floating lights and the gentle hum of alien technology. The council looked at her with a mix of admiration and curiosity. "You have changed the way we see the stars," said the elder with molten eyes. "Not just the stars themselves, but the way we approach knowledge, analysis, and collaboration. Humanity is extraordinary." Elena inclined her head. "Thank you. But this is not just my work. It's our work. Together, humans and aliens can achieve more than either could alone. That is what makes us strong." The council murmured in agreement. There was a sense of shared purpose that had never existed before, a recognition that strength did not come from power or dominance, but from cooperation and understanding. Encouraged by the success of the star mapping project, the council proposed a new initiative. They would explore the possibility of colonizing distant planets together, using the combined knowledge of humans and aliens to ensure sustainability, safety, and balance. Elena agreed, seeing it as an opportunity not only to expand human presence, but also to foster lasting collaboration. The first planet they studied was a vibrant world, covered in lush forests, expansive oceans, and towering mountains. The aliens were fascinated by the planet's complex ecosystems, while Elena approached the task with her characteristic balance of curiosity and careful observation. She proposed methods to study the planet without disrupting its natural balance, emphasizing harmony rather than control. Together, humans and aliens designed systems for sustainable settlement, ensuring that native ecosystems would remain intact while allowing for careful exploration and habitation. The aliens marveled at Elena's ability to see connections they had overlooked, the way water flow affected plant growth, how energy cycles impacted animal populations, and how even minor changes could ripple across the entire ecosystem. One day, while reviewing their progress, an alien scientist asked her a question that revealed just how far the collaboration had come. "Captain Elena, your species seems capable of guiding systems we cannot fully comprehend. How do you know when to act and when to observe?" Elena paused, thinking carefully. "Observation comes first. Understanding comes second. Action comes last, and only when it will create balance, not chaos. Humans have learned over millennia that survival depends on patience, insight, and adaptability. We do not rush, we do not force, we guide." The alien nodded slowly. as if absorbing a truth it had never considered. Perhaps this is why humans survive in situations we would fail. You see not only what is, but what can be. As the months passed, the collaboration flourished. Humans and aliens learned from one another, blending intuition with calculation, creativity with precision. The star mapping network expanded to include hundreds of systems, each more accurately charted than ever before. New methods of exploration were developed, combining alien technology with human insight. And through it all, Elena remained at the center, guiding, observing, and inspiring. The success of the projects did not go unnoticed. Across the galaxy, other alien civilizations began to take note of humans, not as a primitive species to be dismissed, but as innovators, collaborators, and partners. Stories of Elena's ingenuity spread not as tales of war or conquest, but as examples of what could be achieved through respect, understanding, and cooperation. Even within the council chamber, the atmosphere had changed. Where once there had been tension, doubt, and fear, there was now curiosity, excitement, and mutual respect. Humans were no longer outsiders. They were partners. They had shown that intelligence was not measured solely by precision, strength, or control, but by adaptability, insight, and the willingness to learn from others. One evening, as the chamber lights dimmed to simulate the soft glow of a sunset, Elena stood quietly and watched the alien scientists discuss a new project. She smiled to herself. The journey had not been easy. There had been skepticism, misunderstanding, and challenges at every step. But through patience, creativity, and determination, humans had demonstrated that they could not only survive among the stars, they could thrive. The elder with molten eyes approached her once more. "Captain Elena," he said, "you have done more than we could have imagined. Your presence has reshaped the way we think, the way we work, and the way we see the universe. Perhaps your species is destined to guide us in ways we cannot yet foresee." Elena nodded, feeling a quiet pride. "We guide each other," she said softly. "Humans and aliens, together. That is the future we can create." And for the first time, the council chamber, once a place of frozen doubt when a human appeared, now buzzed with energy and anticipation. Humans were no longer underestimated. They were innovators, collaborators, and pioneers, creatures capable of shaping not only their own destiny, but the destiny of the galaxy itself. Elena knew the journey was far from over. There were still mysteries to solve, systems to explore, and challenges to overcome. But she also knew that humans had already made their mark. Through ingenuity, patience, and collaboration, they had earned their place among the stars, and they had earned the respect of civilizations that had once dismissed them. The galaxy was changing, and humans, unpredictable, audacious, and endlessly creative, were at the heart of that change. Months had passed since Captain Elena Voss first set foot in the council chamber of the starship Zenith. The initial tension, the frozen air, and the whispered doubts had long since faded, replaced by a hum of collaboration and shared purpose. Humans and aliens now worked side by side, exploring, learning, and building together. Elena had become not only a representative of humanity, but a symbol of what could be accomplished when respect and understanding replaced fear and prejudice. The newest initiative was ambitious. Using the star mapping network they had perfected together, the Council decided to explore distant, uncharted regions of the galaxy. These regions had been considered too unpredictable and dangerous to study. Ancient supernovae, shifting gravitational anomalies, and strange planetary systems made even the most advanced alien technology struggle to provide accurate data. But with human insight combined with alien precision, the Council believed it was finally possible to explore safely and effectively. Elena prepared for the mission with her usual calm diligence. She reviewed maps, simulations, and ecological data, learning as much as she could before setting out. The alien scientists worked alongside her, offering suggestions, refining methods, and occasionally debating approaches. Each debate was spirited, not hostile, and every discussion revealed the strengths of collaboration. Where aliens provided long-term projections and precise calculations, humans contributed intuition, creativity, and the ability to see connections across seemingly unrelated data points. When the starship Zenith left the orbit of the known systems, it was a moment of celebration. The chamber that had once frozen when a human entered now rang with excitement and anticipation. Humans and aliens stood together on the observation platforms, watching as distant stars stretched into lines and new galaxies came into view. The galaxy, once distant and intimidating, now felt reachable, almost familiar. Their first destination was a cluster of planets previously thought uninhabitable. Simulations had suggested that extreme weather and chaotic energy flows would make exploration nearly impossible. Elena, however, saw potential. She studied the planetary systems carefully, noticing patterns in the energy flows that the simulations had not accounted for. She proposed a route for the ship that would allow them to navigate the chaotic regions safely while collecting critical data. The aliens initially questioned her method. "This path is unusual," said the spindly alien who had first doubted her. "It does not follow calculated safe zones." Elena smiled. "The safest path is not always the straightest one. Sometimes, understanding the rhythm of a system allows you to move where calculations alone cannot guide you." The ship moved as she suggested, weaving through gravitational currents with precision. The aliens watched in amazement as the simulations came to life around them, validating her approach. What had seemed unpredictable was now navigable, revealing planets rich with unique ecosystems, complex mineral formations, and stable energy fields. Upon arrival, the team conducted thorough studies of the planets. Elena led efforts to analyze atmospheres, plant life, and geological structures. Her approach emphasized observation and minimal interference, ensuring that native systems were not disturbed. Aliens learned to respect her methods, noticing how she guided exploration with care rather than attempting to dominate the environment. Over time, settlements were designed on several of these worlds, not large colonies, but carefully planned hubs where humans and aliens could live, study, and interact. Elena worked closely with alien engineers to create structures that blended technology with environmental harmony. Instead of imposing designs that disrupted nature, they adapted to the planets, using renewable energy sources, sustainable habitats, and bio-integrated technology. The planets flourished under their guidance, a testament to what collaboration and respect for natural systems could achieve. One day, while exploring a particularly vibrant planet with towering crystalline formations and flowing rivers of iridescent liquid, an alien researcher approached Elena. "Captain, your species seems different from all others we have encountered. You guide without demanding, adapt without fear, and create without forcing. How do you do this?" Elena crouched beside a flowing stream, observing the interaction between water and crystal. "We learn from everything we encounter," she said. "The galaxy is full of systems, patterns, and connections. Humans survive and thrive because we notice, adapt, and respect these patterns. Strength is not about control. It is about understanding, patience, and cooperation." The alien nodded slowly, as though absorbing a profound truth. "Perhaps this is why your species has achieved what others cannot. You do not seek to conquer the universe. You seek to understand it." The success of these missions began to attract attention across the galaxy. Other alien civilizations, previously dismissive of humans, now sought collaboration. They sent envoys, shared data, and proposed joint projects. Elena's reputation spread, not as a warrior or conqueror, but as an innovator, problem solver, and bridge between species. Humanity was no longer underestimated. Their ingenuity, creativity, and adaptability had earned them a place at the center of galactic progress. Within the zenith, Elena noticed subtle changes in the council chamber itself. The floating lights glowed brighter, the symbols on the walls shifted more fluidly, and the air seemed to pulse with energy rather than tension. Aliens now sought her advice before making decisions, not out of fear, but out of respect. They debated openly, challenged each other, and embraced new perspectives. The room, which had once frozen at her arrival, now thrummed with curiosity, collaboration, and inspiration. Elena understood that the journey had not been solely about proving human capability. It was about forging trust, demonstrating that cooperation could overcome fear and misunderstanding. And it was about showing that even a single individual with patience, creativity, and respect could influence the course of civilizations. As the months turned into years, the network of human-alien collaboration expanded. New star systems were charted with unparalleled accuracy. Ecological and social systems were studied in ways previously unimaginable. Humans and aliens began to co-design technology, blending intuitive innovation with meticulous calculation. Together, they solved problems that had once seemed impossible, stabilizing volatile energy fields, predicting planetary shifts, and creating sustainable settlements in extreme environments. Elena often stood on the observation platforms, gazing at the stars and reflecting on the journey. She thought of the first day she had entered the council chamber, of the tension that had gripped the room, and of the doubt in the eyes of the aliens. She smiled, knowing how far they had come, not just in technological achievement, but in understanding, mutual respect, and trust. The elder with molten eyes approached her one evening, the soft glow of the observation chamber casting shadows across his metallic features. "Captain Elena," he said, "your species has changed our perspective, our methods, and perhaps even our destiny. Humans are remarkable. We have learned to see what we could not before." Elena inclined her head. "We have learned together. Humanity is not alone in this galaxy, and neither are you. The universe is vast, but by working together, we can explore it safely, sustainably, and wisely." The elder nodded. "Indeed, the galaxy is changing, and humans are now part of its guiding force. You have shown that strength is not only in power or technology, but in insight, patience, and collaboration." In the following months, humans and aliens launched joint expeditions into uncharted regions. They discovered planets with breathtaking landscapes, systems of complex orbital harmony, and energy sources that promised new technological breakthroughs. Every expedition reinforced the same truth. Humans brought something unique to the galaxy. Their ingenuity, adaptability, and courage complemented alien precision, and together they achieved outcomes neither could have attained alone. Elena often reflected on the journey of humanity itself. From fragile beginnings on a small blue planet, humans had ventured into the stars, facing challenges, uncertainty, and skepticism. Yet they had survived, thrived, and now inspired civilizations far older and more advanced. The humans' ability to adapt, to observe, to think creatively, and to act with patience had earned them a place among the stars, not through fear or domination, but through respect, collaboration, and determination. The council chamber, once a place of frozen doubt, now rang with optimism and excitement. Aliens no longer viewed humans as unpredictable curiosities. They were partners, innovators, and guides. Humans had proven that even in the vast, complex galaxy, creativity, insight, and cooperation could achieve extraordinary results. Elena knew the journey would continue. There would always be new systems to explore, new mysteries to solve, and new challenges to face, but she also knew that humanity had already made its mark. They had shown that strength was not measured in power alone, but in understanding, in ingenuity, and in the courage to face the unknown with curiosity and respect. As she looked out at the stars, she felt a quiet pride. Humans had begun as a small species on a distant planet. Now, they were a guiding presence in the galaxy, shaping the future through collaboration, insight, and creativity. The room that had once frozen at the sight of a human now pulsed with energy and anticipation. The galaxy had opened its doors, and humanity had stepped forward, not with weapons or force, but with imagination, understanding, and courage. And somewhere deep within the hearts of the alien council, a truth had settled permanently. Humans were extraordinary. They were partners, pioneers, and catalysts for change. They were unpredictable, audacious, and endlessly creative. And through these qualities, they would continue to shape the galaxy, not through fear or dominance, but through inspiration, collaboration, and the relentless pursuit of understanding. The stars stretched endlessly before them, vast and shimmering, a canvas waiting to be explored. And together, humans and aliens, there was nothing they could not achieve. The galaxy, once distant and intimidating, now felt alive with possibility, and humanity stood proudly at its center, ready to guide, explore, and inspire.